Which is better, the LG K51 or the Samsung Galaxy A21? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison between the LG K51 and the Samsung Galaxy A21. Now, both of these phones are offered right now at a variety of different carriers in the US, and that's most likely the best route to go to save the most money on them. Now, I know for sure both of these phones are currently being offered at Metro by T-Mobile and Boost Mobile as well, but they're also offered at a variety of other carriers too, so definitely look into that to see what your options are. Now, if you do want to get these phones factory unlocked, they are offered that way as well, but they are going to be a bit more expensive. But I will leave links in the video description so you can see the most up-to-date pricing for the unlocked variants of these devices. And I'm sure as time goes on, they'll go further and further down in price. So that's certainly a good thing. Now, both of these devices feature very large 6.5-inch displays, so the phones themselves are big too. Now, both displays are LCD. They're also both 720p, so unfortunately not 1080p. But they both still look good and overall look nice and crisp and clear, so I am happy about that. Now with the LG K51, we're getting a PPI of 264 compared to a PPI of 270 with the Samsung Galaxy A21. Now with the K51, we're getting a 19.5:9 aspect ratio compared to a 20:9 aspect ratio with the A21. So we are getting a little bit more of a narrower form factor here with the A21, whereas the K51 is a little bit wider. But overall, both phones I feel like offer a lot of screen real estate. You can also see that there are some major differences when it comes to the designs here, whereas with the LG K51, we are getting a water drop notch for the front-facing camera, which is a little bit more old school. That's something we found more in 2019 and 2018. Whereas the Galaxy A21 does have a hole punch for the front-facing camera. Now, out of these two designs, I personally prefer the hole punch, but at the same time, I feel like the water drop notch is not a deal breaker. Now, both phones do feature a thicker bottom bezel, which is a bit unfortunate, but overall, I think they're both pretty decent when it comes to the design. Now, both front-facing cameras on these phones are 13 megapixels, and definitely make sure to check out my full video reviews of both of these phones to get a better idea of the photo and video quality from them. Now, both devices feature 32 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Now, 32 gigs in 2020 won't get you too far, so it is definitely nice though that we do have microSD card expansion, and I certainly would have preferred to see 64 gigs, but I suppose when you're getting phones in this budget range, you can't necessarily get everything. Now, there's no wireless charging with either of these two phones, but they both feature fingerprint sensors on the back. So we'll give those a try right now, starting with the LG K51. So very fast there, and then we'll give the A21 a try. Very quick as well. So we are getting nice, fast, accurate fingerprint sensors with both phones mounted on the rear. Now, the LG K51 unfortunately does not have face unlock, whereas with the Galaxy A21, we do. So if that's important to you, then this is the only phone of the two that does offer that, so keep that in mind. Now, as far as the cameras go, both of these devices feature a lot of them. So the LG K51 has a triple camera setup on the rear, with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode. And the Samsung Galaxy A21 has a quad camera setup with a 16 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. Now, even though technically on paper the A21 has more camera features since it does have the macro camera, I personally think it's a little bit of a gimmick. It's really not too practical in real life, and you can take pretty close-up pictures with the main cameras on both phones anyway. But at the same time, I would say from my personal experience, the A21 does take better photos and video overall compared to the K51. But with all that said, let's pull up the camera apps on both devices. and I'll show you how things look through the viewfinder. So we'll flip over to the front cameras on both phones. You can see this is how things look. Now with the A21, we do have this nice feature where we can actually get a wider field of view, but it looks like the wider field of view actually puts things on par with the default option with the K51. So it's almost like the non-group selfie mode with the A21 is really just cropping things in, whereas the button that should be cropping things out is really the default. So that's kind of interesting. Now flipping over to the rear cameras on both phones, you can see this is how things look with the standard cameras, and then we'll switch over to the ultra wide angle cameras, and you can see that both phones do fit a lot of content in the frame. However, it does look like the A21 fits a little bit more content, so keep that in mind. And then of course we have that macro camera with the A21, which does give you the ability to get really close up and take close up images. So is it bad that we have the macro camera? Of course not. But on the other hand, is it really a selling point? Not really, in my opinion. So that's kind of interesting. Now both of these devices feature 3 GB of RAM, but there is a difference when it comes to the processor. So the LG K51 has the MediaTek Helio P22, whereas the Samsung Galaxy A21 has the MediaTek Helio P35. Now I do want to mention that the K51 generally is available for a less expensive price tag than the A21, so it does make sense why we're getting a slower, inferior processor. But the reason why I'm doing this video in the first place is because I know that many people are going to be walking into carrier stores, for example. They're going to see both of these phones on the shelf, and they're going to have to decide whether or not it's worth spending the extra money to get the A21. Now, there might also be some situations where both of these phones are offered for free if you're switching in from another carrier, and definitely in that situation, if they're both being offered for the same price, then it's important for you to know that you are going to be getting more power with the A21. Now, I did run a benchmark test here with both phones, and I'll show you the score from that right now. And you can see with the LG K51, I got an overall score of 83255, whereas with the A21, I got a score of 104432. So certainly a bit of a better benchmark score with the A21, and that certainly makes sense due to it having a better processor. Now later on in the video, I will be doing a side-by-side speed test comparison so that you can get a better idea of how things are in real life. But I would say in general, expect the A21 to be the faster phone of the two. Now both of these phones feature beefy 4,000 milliamp hour internal batteries. So that's awesome because you're going to be getting some solid battery life with both phones, especially since those batteries only have to power 720p displays. So that's really excellent. Now with the LG K51, it depends on what carrier you get the phone at for what variant of Android it has. So for example, this is the Boost Mobile variant of the phone, and we're getting Android 9 Pie. However, the people that have gotten the phone unlocked or gotten it from Metro by T-Mobile, for example, have been getting the device with Android 10. So I don't know why LG can't just give all the phones the same variant of Android. It doesn't really make any sense. It's kind of frustrating as well, especially when I'm trying to make these videos. And I don't know if, when, or ever the Boost Mobile variant of the K51 will actually get Android 9 Pie. It's possible that it might never get it. But on the other hand, I don't think that's much of a deal breaker. There aren't that many differences anyway between Android 9 Pie and Android 10, especially when it comes to LG's skin, so keep that in mind. Now the Samsung Galaxy A21 does come with Android 10, and it does feature Samsung's One UI 2.0. Now one of the nice things about One UI 2.0 is that we are getting a bunch of awesome bonus features built into the OS itself. So you are going to be getting a user experience that is very similar to Samsung's flagships. Now the LG K51 does not have NFC, whereas at least the Metro by T-Mobile variant of the A21 does have NFC. So what I recommend doing is that if you end up getting an A21 and you really want NFC, you should double check to make sure the phone has it prior to actually getting the phone. And if you're able to, maybe go in the carrier store and try out their test model and ask them to install this application called CPU-X. When you go on that app, you can go into the settings and it will show you whether or not the phone actually has NFC built in. So I am glad that at least the Metro variant of this phone is offering NFC, as I know that feature is important to many people. But on the other hand, there's a good chunk of people that have no clue what NFC is and have no desire to use it. Now, as far as the build quality of both phones, I would say they're about equal. We're getting an all plastic build minus the front glass, as you can imagine. But taking a look at the left side of both phones, they both feature a plastic band running around the sides of them. However, with the A21, we're getting a matte black finish here, whereas we're getting more of a charcoal polished finish with the K51. And then also on the left side of both phones with the K51, we have the volume up, volume down, and a dedicated Google Assistant button, which doesn't really do anything for me personally. I'm not a big fan of using Google Assistant with the button. I have no issue just going through the OS to access Google Assistant when I need it. And I also have a bunch of Google Home Minis all around my house, so I really never need that button personally, but maybe you do. And with the A21 on the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. Then taking a look at the right side of both phones, with the LG K51, we are getting the slot for the microSD card and SIM card, and we're getting the power button. And with the Samsung Galaxy A21, we're getting the volume up, volume down, and we're getting the power button. Then on the top of both phones, they both feature noise-canceling microphones. And then taking a look at the bottom, they both feature a speaker, they both feature a microphone, they both have a USB-C port, and they both have a 3.5mm headphone jack. So that is very awesome. And then taking a look at the backside of both phones, they actually look pretty similar. We're getting a beanpod format for the cameras on both devices, but you can see it is vertical with the A21, and with the K51, it is horizontal. But we're also getting the fingerprint sensor and then the logos for both brands. And as you can see, both phones do pick up quite a few fingerprints. So if you don't like fingerprints, you're not going to like either of these phones, unfortunately. But with all that said, let's get started with a speed test comparison. So I did clear out the recent applications on both devices. So we'll go to the home screen, and then from here, we'll pull up the camera apps on both phones. So 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the A21 was the first device of the two to pull up the camera. So very interesting. Let's now go to Google Chrome. So 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like it was about equal on both devices, which is pretty interesting. Let's now go to yahoo.com. 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the A21 was the first of the two to pull up yahoo.com. Let's now go to engadget.com. 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like, wow, okay, kind of a tie. Almost looks like the K51 might have been a little bit quicker. And it looks like the ad kind of, the ad popped up first on the K51. So that's very interesting as well. And as you can see here, it's not too much of a difference, but the A21 does fit a little bit more of that photo on the bottom into the frame compared to the K51. Now scrolling, it's pretty smooth on both phones. It does take some time to catch up sometimes, but that will happen with any budget device. Let's now go to this link. And definitely in that test there, the A21 was the first phone of the two to pull up this web page. It also looks like the displays are about equal in brightness and quality when looking at them. I do have the brightness turned up to 100% on both phones, by the way. And yeah, that's an interesting thing though. I would say as far as display quality goes, of course they're both 720p, but as far as the actual panel quality goes, it's pretty much a tie. So that's very interesting indeed. So with all that said, which phone is the better device of the two? So definitely if you are going to get either of these phones factory unlocked, I don't think the K51 is worth any more than $150. And I don't think the A21 is worth any more than $200. But unfortunately, right now, those prices are over those minimums right now if you were to get them unlocked. So I would say if you were going to get either of these phones factory unlocked, you shouldn't. And instead, you should go to your local carrier. Whatever that carrier is, I don't know. But go in the store, ask them if there's any upgrades available, and they'll give you the special upgrade price for either of these two devices. And then after you do that, then you're definitely going to save some money, and it will be well worth it to get either of these two phones. But unfortunately, at the prices they're being offered factory unlocked, it really just isn't worth it. And there's a lot of other better devices, such as the Moto G Power, for example, that are offered factory unlocked that I prefer. But I hope you enjoyed this comparison and analysis of these two devices, and hopefully you got a lot of value out of the video. Another thing I want to mention, if I didn't make it clear enough, I do prefer the A21 over the K51, that's for sure. So if you really have to pick one of the two and all other factors such as price are equal, then yeah, go for the A21, that is for sure. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely take a look though at the links in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing for these devices unlocked, as the prices might go down over time, as I hope they do. But my name is Kevin, this is the LG K51 versus the Samsung Galaxy A21, and I will see you in the next video.